All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Pro Coach Basketball Summit by Basketball Immersion and Coaches Clinic. It's presented by Dr. Dish Basketball. Today, we have a coach, Scott Morrison, who's assistant coach for Boston Celtics. Coach, how you doing?
Doing great, doing great. Thanks for having me on.
I just wanted to thank you for coming on and really appreciate you taking your time to talk to us. What are we going to be talking about today?
Today we're going to talk about zone offense, or more specifically, I guess, attacking zone defense in the NBA.
Awesome. Sounds great. Let's get to it.
Okay, so thanks everyone for joining in. Basically, kind of my thought process every off season is to pick something or a couple things to study with the goal of one, learning for myself or improving something that's maybe I would consider a weakness of mine, and two, coming up with a presentation or a paper or whatever term you want to use to give to Coach Stevens leading into the next season, where perhaps he can use it to add to our systems, or maybe he sees something that he likes and adds parts of it, or he sees something he likes and tweaks it a little bit and adds it to our team. But basically, the research I do starts with kind of an eye test. If I see something during the season that I think we could improve, or that maybe we're not doing as well as some other things, that's the first step. The second step is just to really dive into the film and try to get as much clips and information as I can on video. And then three is to provide some analytical or statistical backing for what I'm trying to prove in the presentation. So that's what I did with this zone project. If anybody had watched the playoffs, they know that Miami and Toronto played a lot of zone against us. We actually handled it pretty well. When all was said and done, I'm not sure that's a opinion that's shared by everyone, but I have some stats that I'll show at the end to kind of back up what I'm going to talk about in this presentation. And basically, the goal for me of this presentation is to prove that the way I think zone should be attacked is the best. I'm not saying it's the only way to do something. Obviously, in basketball, there's always more than one way to do something. It's the keys are more so if everyone's on the same page, if everyone trusts each other, and everyone executes whatever the plan might be. That being said, I'm going to try and promote my idea of a good plan to attack zone defense with this presentation. And just to give you an idea where I come from offensively, a quick story: when I was coaching in the D League, or G League as it is now, with Maine Red Claws, I worked the NBA draft combine in Chicago one spring, and the coach of the Detroit D League team was there with me, and we had played them several times during the season. And we were going to do a clinic, a live clinic for youth coaches and players at an outside facility. And we were on the bus going to the clinic, and we were both speaking. And he asked me what I was doing as a topic, and I said team offense. And he said, "Oh, let me guess, spread it out and attack." And I laughed and I said, "You got it. That's what I believe in. Is just basically spreading it out, attacking, gaining an advantage on the defense as fast as you can in the possession, and then maintaining that advantage throughout the possession until you get a great shot." And I'll talk about that in a minute. So I'm going to share my screen for most of this presentation starting right now. And basically, I'm going to talk about a few things, list the order that I'm going to talk about, and then we're going to show 3 or 4 clips on each topic or each point that I'm trying to make. So bear with me for 1 second, and we'll get this going. All right, hopefully everyone can see that. So this is the kind of order of operations that I'm going to take today with my presentation. First topic is going to be what I think zones want, or why teams play zone. 2, how offenses should be approaching any possession, whether it be man or zone. 3, common offensive mistakes that teams make versus zone that make the zone more effective. 4, I'm going to review kind of a traditional zone attack that's probably the most common. And then 5, my preferred attack methods. 6, some additional principles that would apply to any offense or method to attack it. And then 7, I'm going to finish off with some analytic thoughts or stats based on the playoffs and the bubble. And then if there's time, which there should be plenty of, if anybody has questions, they can fire them at me, whether it be on zone or anything else that we're doing in Boston or that I'm talking about here. So number 1, defensive goals when a team is in zone. Why teams play zone? And these are, again, all my opinion, but I think pretty generic and shared throughout basketball as an opinion as to why a team would be in a zone. First thing is just to bait the offense into overthinking or changing a successful game plan. And that just means what it says. If things are going good offensively, the opposing team might decide to go zone just to hopefully make the offense overthink it, stop what they're doing that has been successful and change. And as a result, get momentum back in their favor. Secondly, slow down the tempo or change the rhythm of the offense. And these are all kind of related. But basically, if a team is really attacking in attack mode, the hope going zone would be to get them to slow down, pass the ball around, stop attacking so much, change their rhythm. And if there's one thing I hate as an offensive team, when a team goes zone, whether it be as an ATO or to start a quarter or just within the flow of the game, I hate when players or coaches or the bench starts yelling zone, 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 they're in zone, they're in zone. What do we do? I feel like when that happens, the zone's already won that possession. So the goal of my methods of attacking would be to be able to attack the same way, whether it's man or zone, have the same principles, the same goals, and not to slow your tempo or change your rhythm. Thirdly, elongate possessions or decrease attack time. And again, what I mean by that is just playing zone, hoping the offense will pass the ball around a little bit, slow their tempo, start attacking later in the possession, and have less time to attack or take advantage of any matchups they might have in their favor. Which brings me to the fourth one: negate offensive advantages and matchups or hide weaker defenders. And that's no secret. If you have a good offensive player, great shooter, for example, who's getting attacked on the defensive end, you may switch to zone and hope you can hide them in that zone and use the gap help and so forth to kind of offset his weaknesses defensively. The general offensive goals, and again, versus any coverage, and these are just, again, my opinion. One, gain an advantage as quickly as possible in the possession. That might be a paint threat. It might be an attack to get a 2-on-1. Anything that makes the defense shrink or help or rotate is an advantage. B, maintain that advantage through ball movement, multiple attacks, spacing, etc., so that you have the advantage the whole possession and the defense is on their heels and rotating the whole 24 seconds or as much of that 24 seconds as you can get them to. And thirdly, execute a critical read leading to a great shot. So as you get the advantage, maybe on the first attack, you have a critical read, which might be a pass or shoot situation, might be which pass to make if help comes. Maybe it's your second attack, but as long as you maintain that advantage, eventually you're going to get to a point where a player can make a read that will get you a great shot. And by great, I mean kick out threes, corner threes, layups at the rim, or free throws. That's kind of your basic definition of a great shot. And that's what we're trying to get every possession, regardless of the defense. And A and B is how I think is the best way to go about getting them. And then obviously D, you've got to be able to finish or score. But in terms of coaching and trying to get shots, other than putting the right guys in the right spots, that comes down more to player development and the players you have. But A and B is something you can really encourage and help as a coaching staff. So common mistakes that teams make against zone, we can guess from the first slide, is one, slow their pace down. Starting actions or attacks too late in the possession, running a lot of cutters through, passing the ball around, trying to get the ball inside with passing instead of driving, which brings me to B, players looking to pass versus being a threat. And I'll show clips of all these common mistakes. And then C, settling for shots without a paint threat or a defensive shrink. So basically you don't get an advantage, but because it's a zone, you can get a shot off that you may think is great, but it gets contested or is not as easy as it would be if you did get that defensive shrink. And that's basically what I think zones want. So onto our clips here. Sorry, I'm just gonna turn this down. The first one was a slow pace, poor space. And I'm gonna let these run for the most part, but you see in this clip how LeBron brings it back out. That's a common, in my opinion, mistake against the zone. The shot clock now is already at 12 before we even think about trying to get the ball inside. Passing, now it's at 8. Okay, we finally get the ball to the nail, which is what they're trying to do. Shot clock's at 6. We have no spacing, and the zone gets what they want by having McGee be the attacker with under 5 on the clock, very limited options as to what they can do with that much time on the clock. Here you have Dallas, okay, one of the best offensive teams of all time by the numbers. And the Miami zone, even though it's a good zone, they're basically turning Dallas into a passing team. already 7 on the shot clock here. Finally, Luka decides to drive, and our spacing's poor. In my opinion, this guy should be weak side dunker. This allows Bam to kind of stunt at Luka and still be able to guard here, and results in a turnover because it's all jammed up. And again, had to force a tough shot late in the clock because we started attacking too early, or Dallas started attacking too early. And I'm going to be critical in a lot of these clips, but obviously these teams can kick our butts and are great teams. Just a matter, for the sake of the presentation, I picked out clips I thought emphasized what I was talking about. So again, the Lakers want to attack with a high-low situation, which I'll get to as well later on in the presentation. But you see the Lakers wanting to pass the ball around. LeBron vacates the nail to the dunker. AD takes the nail. Common zone offense. Already 12 on the clock. Okay, 11, 10. Finally, we get a paint threat right here with Caruso cutting, but not great spacing because we cut at the same time. Now we're at 8, 7, and again a contested 3. There was a paint threat there, but I think Miami is happy with Rondo taking that contested 3 with 7 on the clock. Whereas it would have been a lot tougher if LA had to attack him right away. Next thing, looking to pass versus being a threat. And Tice here, okay, we're trying to run a play of some kind. All right, Tice clearly not looking to be a threat. Bam sinks back to take JB. If Tice takes a dribble or at least looks at the rim, perhaps Bam engages him, and now we have JB and Gordon on the weak side in a 2-on-1, or you're forcing Dragic to have to take the ball if Bam stays down. But Tice clearly looking to pass. Butler can just sit in that passing lane and wait to pick it off. Similar situation here with Dallas. Okay, you can just tell on these guys' catches that they're not looking to be threats, and the defense picks up on that too. Obviously, the common one is putting this ball above your head right here. So now we have Russell just knowing he wants to be a passer. He's kind of playing free safety, and it's a much more calculated gamble to try and get that steal when you're looking to be a passer versus looking to be a threat. Last clip on this one. Just notice every catch, it's a shot fake. It's not really a threat to drive. I mean, LeBron can beat his man anytime. Okay, first drive with 8 on the clock. And again, it's Kuzma, not the guys you want driving when you have LeBron on the floor. And the spacing as well, not great. Obviously, he should be weak side. It allows everyone to load up on the ball and not leave someone free at the rim. And Miami's taking that shot all day long. Last common mistake here that I'm talking about is settling without a paint threat. And again, these are shots that can be hit. They're sometimes decent shots. Obviously, LeBron can hit that shot, but it's not the best shot they can get. It's not a great look. It's contested. It's deep 3. There was no paint threat. Miami was not forced to guard. They'll take that every time and live with the numbers as they did in the second half of Game 6 against us, which we'll talk about later. So not bad ball movement. We got a little bit of a ball screen. Corner 3 from Shemi Ojeleye here. Pretty contested. Maybe you take that if you've exhausted all your options by attacking throughout the course of the possession. But with 13 on the clock and with 2 All-Stars, JT and Kemba over here on the weak side, we'd sure like this to be a drive and a threatening play from Shemi. If they don't help, sure, lay it in. Chances are they're going to help, and we're going to get a kick out to JT or Kemba for something better, and still with time on the clock for them to attack again if they really choose to. So another point, I didn't want to put it in the presentation because I didn't want to take that much time, but anytime a team pressures, I have the same philosophy. Get the heck down the court, get to the corner, get to the dunker, have 2 guys all the way down the baseline, and just spread this press out and attack. These presses are not, it's not like Arkansas or old Kentucky where they're trying to get turnovers. They're trying to just slow you down. So by not spacing and not attacking, it plays into their hand, again, shortening the amount of time you have to attack. Already we're at 10 here. There's no spacing in this alignment to drive anyway. So there's very little chance for a paint threat. And again, pretty tough shot, contested, 6 seconds. Good shooter, but that's what Miami wants to get in this possession. So no paint threat equals settling without a paint threat to shoot, and not going to be as good a look. So the first way that most teams attack zone is through passing and cutting actions, which I don't have many clips of, but we'll talk about it in certain clips that come with other sections. And then the probably the most common historical way is the high-low or the 1-3-1 spacing, which is just what we saw Dallas do in that last clip. And in my opinion, this can be an effective way to attack it, and teams can definitely score, especially depending on their personnel. But it's also my opinion that these methods encourage the common mistakes that I showed in the first section. So just to make sure we all know what I'm talking about, the traditional high-low, it might be more of a 1-3-1 with the one up top and wings, which I think is actually not the way to go about it, because you saw in that Dallas clip, the spacing is limited to attack from the top. So I would say more of a slot to slot situation here, and then a flash from the baseline. I think the flash from the baseline is the most effective way if you're going to try and get to the nail, just because usually most zones, the off guard, the guy guarding 3 in the zone is supposed to take this away. So he can't see that coming as well without turning his head. If you do get the ball to 4, you have these wings flatten out 2 and 3 to get in his vision. So if the bottom row shrinks, we have corner 3s, and obviously 5 is going to be a threat at the rim. And you'll see Davis and LeBron do that pretty well in a couple clips. But it depends on 4 facing up and 2 and 3 getting in his vision. If 4 can't get the ball, then we go, to the wing into the dunker area, and then have 4 dive. So these passes just mean with 4 dives, 5 can hit them. Sometimes on the dive, if it's a good threat, the top of the zone will shrink, and maybe 3 is open. So that's your basic high-low. So some mistakes that I think it encourages with this way of attacking. Number one, it encourages mid-range, because you're passing the ball to a guy in the mid-range instead of attacking. So here Ronald does a pretty good job. He faces up, he's a threat. Davis is diving to the rim, and Caldwell Pope is flattening out, just what we talked about, but we don't get a look. And now it's back to the dunker, and they're getting that shot right there, which again, they don't have to take that, and you can execute this method without taking those shots. But I think by passing the ball to the dunker and the nail, it's hard for those guys to resist shooting when they think they're open. So here's the spacing that I don't really like with this attack, because there's not much room to really drive it, but they do get the ball to the nail, and he faces up. Ideally, someone's down here, or Wright's fan into the corner to be a threat. But again, there's still time on the clock to get more. It's just enticing to shoot that mid-range, and Miami's going to take that with Bam challenging, a 10, 12 footer, even though you can make that. You're not making it as high of a percentage or high of a value as a corner 3 kick out or a rim shot. Again, Davis is one of the best players in the league, but the reason Miami's in this zone is so they're not getting beat with something else. And Crowder's able to contest this pretty tough shot. Still 10 seconds on the clock. I think playing this way introduces that into the equation. Next thing is the pass. When you're forced, or you think you're forced to pass it into the nail to get the offense going, it becomes a tough pass. We talked about guys being passers. I said how the defense can pick up on that and then pressure more. Add that to the fact you have to pass through someone in a straight line to get this ball in here. It's not the easiest pass to make. It's not that Gordon can't make this pass, but again, you're introducing this extra difficulty into the equation by playing this way. Same thing here. Again, Iguodala's pressuring this pass right on the angle they need to get the ball to the nail. They're fronting the other guy. Discourages Kuzma, wastes more time. Okay, the nail has to be vacated, and now you're forcing a turnover. So in my opinion, just not as efficient as just getting it and going, for example. So here, JT can make this pass, but it's a tough pass. So I'd rather have JT attacking than trying to squeeze the ball into a small space like that with defense all knowing what's going to happen. Okay, next common mistake in this type of attack is not facing up. So here, Smart makes a pretty good read, actually, to get Kemba the ball here, but it's not good enough for a shot. I feel like if Smart squares up on this catch, and he has Grant Williams ducking in, occupying somebody, okay, JT fanning out, JB in a corner, someone of those 3 is going to be open, or they're going to leave Smart wide open to drive in for a layup. But by not facing up, he limits his options. Good stunt from Hero there, and we end up turning that ball over again. Here's some pressure. Let's clear out and attack. Don't even mess around with these passes. Just go. Okay, get 2 guys down here. Get a 3rd guy deep middle. And then get going. Not too bad overall. We're at 17, but it'd be nice if we're at 21 with an advantage. So here we're running some sort of cutting action, which I referred to in that last slide. We didn't talk about it specifically, but it's a cutting action into a flash. And again, we're already at 11 right here on the clock. So we've lost a lot of time to have an advantage. Perhaps Gordon makes the right decision because there's not much time to take the shot we can get. Pretty contested shot. Would have been nice to see Gordon square up and try to force Bam to guard him. right here, and that leaves Tice with a seal on Dragic, which should be a dump down layup. So here's some examples of good execution of this style of play, or as good as you can get. So quick entry to the nail. Morris doesn't face up, but Davis does dive and takes two guys with him. So he helps out Morris by doing that in a quick decision. You could argue that shot is the exact same as Kemba's and just went in, so it makes it better. But I like the fact that they got it in quick. So here's Toronto. They play a little bit different on the zone. They more match up to this guy in the nail. You see OG matched up on Tatum, but the principles of the offense are the same. We have dunker spacing, Wanamaker fan down, Grant Williams in the corner, and JT's a threat, and that's the biggest deal. He's a threat. He forces someone to help, and then he makes that critical read that I spoke about. And perhaps Toronto, again, said let Grant Williams shoot, but that actually proved to be a mistake in the playoffs, given Grant Williams corner threes. And most guys in the NBA can knock that corner three down at a high enough rate. So here you have a pretty tough, guy in the nail area. You can pretty much get that ball to Davis a little bit easier than you can to a Hayward or a Smart. But watch the face up. Okay, face up. He sells this dive right here, forces him to take away the big, and we get that corner three. And that's basically how this high-low or traditional zone offense should look. I think there's one or two more clips here. I'll let it go. And again, depends on personnel. You got AD and LeBron on your team, you probably want to play this way, or at least look at it. Again, the face up, LeBron's dive, second attack, pretty good execution there. Last clip here. You kind of start with the ball screen, but at the end of the day, they're going flash. So dunker catch, like we said in the diagram, any dunker catch, this guy dives down, and then the read is really this guy here, or if none takes away the big, it's the corner three. And pretty good read by LeBron to wait out none, and none committed to the corner, dunk for Davis. So now what I'm trying to really prove with my presentation is how I think zone should be attacked. And that's basically one of two ways. A, just space it out and attack with your corners and your dunker filled. Kind of, if you are familiar with dribble drive offense, the old dribble drive spacing, that's basically what I think you can do against man or zone. It takes away all those mistakes that we talked about early. It takes away the things that the zone's trying to get in terms of slowing your pace and breaking your rhythm. And then B, pick and roll or an early ball screen package plays. And I think a mix of both is great. If you have a bunch of athletes that can beat their man off the dribble, then the space and attack probably makes sense for you. If you have a less athletic team or guys who aren't great off the dribble by themselves one-on-one to get an advantage, then maybe you go with more pick and rolls where you can get the advantage early on with the ball screen. And I think the biggest thing with these two is that they encourage threats early in the possession and more often throughout the possession. So you can really get your advantage early and then have time to attack more than one time to get the best possible shot that you can get. So just a diagram to what I'm talking about, the space and attack. You have the corners filled deep, the dunker opposite the ball, the three-man here wide in the slot, and that gives one the option to attack downhill right off the get-go to the baseline side, the sideline side, or cross it over to the middle, and we have spacing. Obviously, if the attack comes from this side, the five-man will relocate to the weak side dunker. And you can, everyone runs this man or zone. So that's another good thing is anytime your zone attack is transferable to man, you don't have to worry about teams that change defense. Now, for teams that hide defenders, let's say the weaker defenders over here opposite the ball to start the possession, simple pass across and let three attack, five opposite dunker. And again, same options as you had with one. And then if it's a team like Miami who puts their weaker defenders down on the baseline in the corner, just pass it across to the four. You've wasted maybe 2 seconds, 3 seconds, and let him attack that weaker defender there. And I like this weak side cut on any baseline drive, which I'll talk about later as well. So a couple of examples. Now again, the Lakers weren't playing that system, but they're kind of spaced out a little better here. They have two on the baseline. Be nice if one of these guys was in a corner to give LeBron more space, but guess what? He's LeBron. And he can beat this guy anytime. So I don't know why they would ever pass the ball around for 8 to 10 seconds when we can just beat our guy in the first play. And this dunker, Howard, I believe, is just keeping that defense honest down on the baseline. All LeBron has to do is make the read to score or dump off. So again, this isn't exactly the spacing, but we have corners filled. we have a small lineup, so Hayward's going to make his way down to the dunker. And again, you see JB, he's got an advantage on this catch. He attacks, he doesn't hesitate, and he makes the read to beat Bam to the rim. So we're attacking and getting good looks here, while the first section of offense was still passing the ball around. Again, Dallas, okay, good spacing. It's 5 out instead of 4 out, but same deal. He has an advantage on Dragic. Why wait? Just go. Why pass it around and let someone sit there with a disadvantage and not have to defend it? Okay, good example of the dunker here. So Bam's the rim protector. LeBron goes early, and Davis being in the dunker makes Bam have to think. Does he take the ball? Does he take the dunker? Basic read that you make man or zone. And LeBron, again, great read, taking his time, so Bam retreats to the big, he can lay it in. So press break, just get it and go. Okay, here's what I talked about with the weaker defender being down here. I believe that's Robinson, so we want to attack him if we can. And Gordon catches it and attacks right away, draws 2, forces this shrink around the paint, and makes a good read back to Kemba. Kick out threes are better than a non-paint threat 3. Okay, so the second part was the mid pick and roll, or pick and roll series, I should say. So I like the mid pick and roll when the 5 is trailing the play, basically turns into a drag situation. You see the same spacing right here. And I think it's important, I'll mention it again later, but I think it's important for the guy in this 3 spot to be a playmaker. Not necessarily have to be a great shooter, but someone that can get the ball, drive, and make the critical read. You'll see what I'm talking about in a minute. Most teams are going to pick up the ball with this X2 guy. So we set the drag, 1 attacks to the middle. Most teams, including Miami in the playoffs, stop the ball with X2. So the pass was to 3, and then 3 has to become the attacker or the playmaker. If X2 doesn't go with 3, like in this diagram, or sorry, if X2 stays with 3, then it's just a regular single side tag pick and roll. 1's driving down the middle, 5's rolling, 2 is in the tag in the lift. If X2 takes the ball, like I said earlier, quick pass to 3, drive downhill, and you put X4 in a 2-on-1 situation. It's important for 5 after he screens to get to that dunker. So if you're not involved in a pick and roll situation where you're getting the ball on a roll, get all the way down to the dunker in space and get ready for that next attack. Make the read be X4. So here's some examples. Okay, so mid pick and roll here. And again, we have an attacker or a playmaker in this spot, which is key. Butler stunts on the ball. That pass is open. And now it becomes a 2-on-1 here on the baseline side. So the over stunt on JT, good read. And that's JB's shot right there. We'll take that shot any day of the week, especially off a little bit extra shrink to make the closeout longer. Okay, so Brad Wanamaker in this spot, okay, not an all-star, but a good playmaker, good decision maker, can finish. And again, JT makes this early read. He sees Hero cheating. He's way over there from the middle spot. So quick pass, and then don't waste any time. Maintain your advantage. Don't hold the ball to lose your advantage. Brad catches this ball and goes. We maintain the advantage. He probably could have laid it up because they were stunting here more than they're helping, but it was so far of a stunt that, again, JB can knock that shot down anytime. Next one. Okay, a little bit late to start. It took a while for Tice to get there, and we kind of messed around, but eventually we get it set. Still 13, better than 9 or 10. And simple play, doesn't always have to be a home run. Okay, we gained an advantage right here. There's 2 on the ball. Make the right read, maintain your advantage with a quick drive. So Brad learned from previous games that they're going to stunt from the corner, and he makes the critical read to score and gets that bucket. Last one. Okay, Tice is trailing the play. Mid pick and roll. Force Butler to take him. Tice is rolling. And a little bit of hesitation from JB, but all it really does is make Dragic leave. And he still has enough time to beat Butler. Notice Tice getting to the dunker. JT should be down here more to give JB the option to hit him when Hero takes the dunker. But as long as that dunker is there, it's occupying someone. You have to guard a 6'9" guy at the rim. You have to guard a 6'2" guy at the rim. So as long as you have a dunker or a cutter, you can get something good. Sorry, this is the last one on the mid pick and roll. But again, okay, Morant gambles, he overplays to help Gordon. We have an advantage, and JT has an easy read to shoot that ball. He could have also drove it if he wanted to. So the other ball screen that I'm going to talk about is just a step up. If 5 is ahead of the play and starting at the baseline, set the step up and attack the outside. And it kind of cuts out the first action in the middle where we attack on the outside and put this X2 guy in a predicament. But getting this set gives us the option to shoot the 3. We can just get a regular 2-side pick and roll with 3 filling behind, or we can hit 2 for a shot or an attack if X2 decides to help, like you see right here. And again, 5, after you set it, make sure you roll to that opposite dunker in case there's an attack coming. This is also good if teams decide to blitz that pick and roll. A lot of times if you hurt even a zone on early pick and rolls, they will blitz or they will ice, and making this quick pass across and then setting the step up. You see 5 kind of changing his angle to set it for 3 instead of 1. That keeps the guy who would be blitzing on his toes, keeps him honest. We should be able to get an advantage with that. If they're icing, all the better. Set it on the angle and let him attack downhill. So here's a couple of examples. So the step up, they're actually icing this anyway. Doesn't matter for us. Okay, anytime, and this is a rule for man or zone, anytime it's a lot of ball pressure high, that's a cue for our big to really set the screen, because give Kemba a chance to shoot the 3. If they're sagged off and Butler switches his feet to ice, Tice will probably get out of there quick and let Kemba attack. But because he's up so high, let's set it, and that's our first option every time. Shoot that 3 with a good shooter. And these rules are man or zone. So step up here, Toronto plays a little bit different with their zone, okay? But we still get 2 on the ball. Kemba makes his read with the tag, and we have 2-on-1 on the backside. Again, we maintained our advantage with spacing and ball movement there. Toronto was in a scramble mode the whole possession, and even if we wanted to, we could have drove again. So again, Toronto lines up their zone a little bit different, but in this case, OG is basically the big who's dropped on the pick and roll. And when the big comes up because Kemba's hit a 3, the next read is to attack him. Attack his outside leg. And notice we have Gasol over here, who's not the best defender. So setting the step up on Gasol's side is also something that we would look to do in this situation. We had the advantage, spacing, second attack, maintained our advantage all the way down to 9 on the clock for a great look. The only nitpick I would say in this possession is Kemba did not respace, and I'd like to see him over here in this corner. But attacks and right reads can make up for mistakes, just like effort can make up for mistakes defensively sometimes. Couple more, okay? Took us a little while again to get into it. Be nice if we did this right off the bat, but we didn't. But to showcase the read, you see, okay, like we talked about, if they want to help up from the corner, make sure we're spaced, and then make that read, take advantage of the guy over helping. As long as you set a good screen, you're going to get 2-on-1 somewhere. It comes down to making the right read. So some additional notes with this attack, the pick and roll and the space. Like I said before, I like to have a playmaker here. No disrespect to Kuzma, but he's not the best playmaker. He can make this shot, but if there's no shot there, he's not really the best guy to drive this and make the right read as to who should be delivered the ball for the shot. So it's kind of a waste to give him the ball there. It allows Miami to recover, and he will shoot it, but not exactly the shot they're probably looking for in that situation. These next 2 clips, I'll just let them run. And we've talked about it the whole presentation here so far. Get the advantage early, maintain your advantage, get multiple attacks if you have to, whatever you have to do to get the best possible shot. And the earlier you start, the more time you have to get it. Here we're actually running some sort of action, but our pace was good. Lots of ball movement. Here's our second paint threat. Here's our third paint threat. Still 8 seconds on the clock. Smart could have drove if he didn't have as good a look as he did. Another point, I like a pick and roll early with some cutting off the ball. So if you see something like this situation over here, where the wing on the weak side is really over helping, that's a cue to cut. You see JB probably open there. If he wasn't open, at least he forced Hero to shrink. It gets him in a scramble mode. And Rob does a good job here. Like I said earlier, if you set the ball screen high and don't get it on the roll, make sure you get to the dunker for that second attack. And there it is. So early step up, we get an advantage. Look at Smart over here. He's perfect spacing, deep to the corner. A lot of players think that's too deep. That's exactly where you want to be. He sees Robinson cheating up high. Once he turns his head, he starts to go, and we get that pick and roll with the cut. So there's a lot of stuff to deal with there. Kelly obviously has to take the ball because the screen was good. Opens up Smart's cut. So 3 concepts that I think go for no matter what you do. So if you disagree with me and you want to play your high-low or your cutting actions or your passing actions, these things can still apply to you. If you agree with me and think that it's better to attack early and maintain your advantage with multiple attacks throughout the possession, these things also apply. So I'm going to let these offensive rebounds speak for themselves. Okay, anytime a team's in zone, you can definitely punish them, especially from the corners on offensive glass. So I would encourage the corner guys, if they're not the shooter, to crash or at least run through the paint on their way back in transition. And the way Miami played too, we should have really exposed them more with their corner crashes, because on any of those step ups that we set, the wings, like in Robinson in this case, were way up. There's no chance to block out. And of course, just because you're not blocking out doesn't mean you're not turning to face the ball. So that kick out 3 should be there. Next thing, I love cutting, as anybody who knows me would be aware of. So I think man or zone, anytime there's a drive baseline or a baseline threat, I like this weak side cut. Corner, 45 degrees, doesn't really matter to me as long as someone's cutting. Every clip you see, maybe not every clip, 98% of the clips you see with a baseline attack, this is what everyone's head looks like on defense. They're all staring at the ball and they're turning. Anytime you see a defender's back of his jersey on film, that means he's not seeing the weak side. It's an opportunity to cut. So especially with zone, when they're not really keyed in on their man, it's really easy for a zone defender to turn. Look at all the heads again. Like I said, JB sees it. I'm okay with Gordon cutting here too, as long as one of them stays face and one of them cuts. Great read and cut there. Okay, different situation. It's not a baseline drive, but it's a post up, and I think it should be treated the exact same. You see the cut here, and with any good cut, a lot of times it's going to be the person behind the cutter who's open because the defense reacts to the cut. Just watch these guys here a little bit. They both kind of shrink in, especially the baseline guy. Great read by Murray, a great Canadian. And that cut created that corner 3. And then the last point, just anytime the zone overhelps or gets too high in the gap, it's a good time to look to cut. And again, like I said with Miami, their wings tend to get up high. So if you can lose sight of them and make contact with the ball handler who's at least attacking minimally, you can get a look there, or maybe you get whoever's behind the cutter an open look. So multiple attacks here. We're in our flow. We're maintaining our advantage a little bit. We got a scramble situation. Dragic lost sight of Shemi in the corner because we're scrambling with 2-on-1 right there. And Shemi just made the great read. Simple attack, gets him the ball. This is the last one. So this is we're in our high-low situation here, or at least with a guy at the nail. And he faces up to be a threat like we talked about. He engages Bam. He pulls Bam away from the rim. And Gordon makes the nice read when he sees Robinson's up high. So last slide. That was the end of the clips. But just some analytic thoughts to consider. And I'm going to take you off screen share and read them out off my paper. But basically, to back up my theory of attacking, or why I think we should attack a certain way, the biggest one is the time of possession when the first paint threat or first attack occurs. And then I'm going to talk about when to stay in zone, kind of a bubble case study. Bear with me for 1 second here. Okay, so in the playoffs against Miami, when we played the first way with actions and traditional kind of high-low 1-3-1 spacing, the average time that we got our first attack or paint threat was 10.3 seconds on the shot clock. So it's less than half the time of the possession is left. and our resulting points per possession on those possessions was 0.84. When we attacked quickly with space, or we set a quick pick and roll early in the possession, our average paint threat or attack point was 15.6 seconds. So over 5 seconds earlier, we're getting into the paint, or we're forcing the defense to have to shrink or help. And our points per possession on those types of plays was 1.22. So that's just kind of my final, I guess, argument as to why to play that way. You're just getting in the paint sooner. You're forcing the defense to have to play longer and tougher, and you're increasing your time that you have to get a great shot. You're not becoming a passer versus a threat. Everyone's a threat. Everyone's spaced. And as long as you're playing that 0.5 basketball and maintaining that advantage that you get early on, you have the advantage. The whole possession increases your opportunity to get a great look at the end. Obviously, you still have to make the shot, but you're putting yourself in the best possible situation to do so. And even when you're running some sort of action with cuts and passes that ends up with a pick and roll later, it's still later in the possession that you're getting that pick and roll. And I think it's just basic common sense or analytics that any time you can start your attack sooner, you increase your chances of scoring on that possession. And my last thing is just kind of a question to you or any of you that might have watched the playoffs. And just bear with me on these stats, but basically we struggled against Miami in the early part of the series. And in my opinion, it was because we were trying to be too cute with our actions and our passing and our cutting. And they really honed in on what we were trying to do. So in games 1 and 2, we were 0.92 points per possession. For the season, our offense in total was 1.14. So quite a bit lower. And that was on 42 possessions in those 2 games. Games 3 and 4 were kind of a push. We started mixing up our attack. And then game 5 and 6 in our Miami series, we really started killing them in their zone. In game 5 and the first half of game 6, we scored 43 points on 26 possessions, which is a 1.65 points per possession, which is obviously astronomical. And I'll never probably understand unless I get a chance to sit down with those guys sometime and ask them, but they stuck with the zone in the second half of game 6 after we had torched it the previous 3 halves. And in the second half of game 6, we were 0.82 on 25 possessions. It's the highest number of possessions they played zone in the series in the elimination game after we had, like I said, beat them up on it pretty good the first 3 halves of those 2 games. So I guess some thoughts I had on that were perhaps they thought our shooting was going to run out. Perhaps they felt comfortable taking a risk to stay in it because they had a lead on us and would still have game 7 even if we did win game 6. And they ended up being right, because what happened was, although we were setting pick and rolls and getting an advantage early, we were settling early for contested threes, for mid-range, instead of using that time that we had in the possession like we had the previous 48 minutes or 72 minutes. We just started settling and not working for the best possible shot. So perhaps Miami thought we would kind of run out of our discipline with that, and maybe we got tired. I don't know what the reason was, but we did settle for less than great shots, and their gamble to stay in zone, or their choice to stay in zone, really paid off. Now contrast that with the Lakers series. Miami played 150 possessions of zone against us. For the series, we were 1.11. So all that stuff I just talked about together, we were 1.11. Overall for the series, man or zone, we were 1.15. So we weren't that bad against the zone. Even though we started off poorly, we did really well late. So 1.11. In the Lakers series, after 2 games, they had played 77 possessions of zone, and the Lakers were 1.10. But Miami took the zone away. They did not go back to zone. If you watching it saw that, and it's just been really bothering me why they would take the zone off against them after basically scoring not quite as well as we did, where they went to it heavier against us. Obviously, it paid off again, like I said, against us. But I've just been curious why they took it away. Lakers were running basically solely high-low type actions. And I guess maybe my opinion might be that because they have LeBron and AD, they put LeBron and AD in those 2 spots, the dunker and the high post, quite a bit. And that's definitely a scary proposition. Very physical, strong dudes in there that can score, pass, and finish, and easier to get them the ball because they're so big. So that could be one thought of why they didn't want to stick with zone. And then perhaps maybe because they were down in the series, they couldn't afford any kind of mess ups with their defense and their possession. So that's basically the presentation that I had. I know it was simple, but that's kind of my point, is that too often teams overcomplicate their zone attack. They open up the option for the opponent to really mess with them when they change from man to zone, and you're overthinking it. What are we in? What should we be running? The way I like to attack it, I think you can attack man or zone. That's actually the way I like to attack man too. But especially if a team is mixing it up, you can go into a game with a package of 4 or 5 plays that you can call, and the guys don't have to worry about what the defense is. No one's overthinking it. No one's on the sideline yelling zone, zone, zone. And it's just playing basketball, making the same reads you make against man, same reads you make against the coaches in practice. And you keep your pace, keep your attack, keep your advantage. And whatever reason that team went to the zone, you can really cancel it out by attacking this way. So I'm not sure how this works. If there are any questions, I can take them. I'm starting to see a couple here, I guess.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I can read it for you. Have you seen any other quick hitter man actions that work well against zone besides just the drag step, pick up pick and roll?
Yeah, so I think there's lots of things you can run against the zone. Like Coach Stevens has a couple of good sideline plays you can look up that we also scored off. Some of those numbers I was talking about also included sideline out of bounds. I guess I just think my opinion would be to save those actions for ATOs or sidelines where you can organize the guys without burning time on the clock. So if you know a team is going to be in zone, maybe you have a different quick hitter that you draw up. If you get the ball out of bounds on the sideline, you see they're in zone, you have a couple plays in your playbook that are for sideline zone, and you run them. But I mean, any quick search of zone actions, you'll find them. I just don't think it's efficient to have those plays as quote unquote zone plays. And then when you see the team surprise you with zone, have to change everything that you had planned to run, stop the attack, waste time. Now you're putting a lot of pressure on that play to really deliver into one action that you have time for.
Awesome. Another question is, would you done anything differently if you don't have a lot of shooters on your team? I guess coach is asking like for he's asking in terms of a high school game, if anything would be different if you don't have a lot of shooters on your team.
No, and I think the reason is if you don't have shooters, you probably have, I would hope you have attackers or you have pick and roll guys, because otherwise it doesn't really matter what you do. You got to have one of those things. And I think by setting those pick and rolls early or by spacing it out into the dribble drive, you can use your advantage. Maybe if you have a good big in the dunker, you can put him in a situation where the rim protector has to help or choose to take the big. If you have one good shooter on your team, you can put them in the corner on the same side as the dunker, for example, and really force them to have to choose who they're helping. And I think, again, if you get into those pick and rolls early or that space and attack early, and you have a good attacking team that's not great at shooting, you still are putting the opponent in a rotation or a help situation. And eventually you got to hope that if you keep attacking and have more time, you're either going to get to the rim or get fouled. And if you don't have shooting, that's your best bet to score, is to get into that paint and get fouled, or to get into that paint and make a dump off. And the best way to create that is with multiple attacks.
Awesome. Is there anything that you would have done differently in the series against Miami Heat?
Yeah, I mean, in hindsight's 2020, but I think that we learned throughout the course of the series that the best way to attack that is at least against that particular zone is the stuff I was talking about. And I think if we could have went to that stuff earlier, maybe we would have had a better chance to win game 1 and 2 when the zone really hurt us. We did score some off the other stuff, but I think it just took us out of what we are good at, which is, we're a good pick and roll team. We have good athletes who can attack and make reads. And by turning them into passers, we kind of take away some of the advantage that we had. So perhaps there's a different zone that we would see where it might be better to run kind of those actions that I'm discouraging. But at least from my personal standpoint, I think we could have went to our pick and roll packages heavier in the first couple games, and hopefully that would have got us a win in game 1 or 2.
Awesome. Would you stick to the same concepts against a 1-3-1 zone?
Yeah, I would. I mean, the way I see it, no matter what kind of zone you're playing, someone has to be on the ball. And no matter what kind of zone you're playing, if that guy on the ball gets screened, someone's got to pick him up. So if you're in a 1-3-1, someone's on the ball. If you space it out to the corners, someone has to respect the corners. So I guess one of the goals in attacking this way is to kind of make the zone more like a man. And majority of zones, if you set a ball screen, is going to turn into man, at least 2-on-2. So it's the exact same type of reads and spacing that you have with your man stuff. And in theory, that's the stuff that you work on the most and you're most comfortable with. So regardless of it's a 1-3-1, a 3-2, a 2-3, if you space to the corners and space at the top with a ball screen, they're going to have to really match up, and it's going to look very similar to how it would look if they were in man-to-man.
Awesome. And then one more question. Do you think Miami came into the second half of Game 6 thinking, let's start in it, give it 3 possessions before we make an adjustment? Or do you think they believe the issue was effort versus execution?
I mean, I really don't know. That's going to be something that's going to bother me. Not bother me. I mean, I respect what they did because it worked. I'm disappointed in our guys for not attacking it the exact same way as we did in the previous 3 halves. But I think that for sure, they would have probably went into the second half saying, okay, we believe this is going to happen. But, if they knock down 2 threes in the first 3 possessions, we probably got to do something about it. There's also the theory, the Jim Boeheim theory with Syracuse. I remember him saying one time that the best thing that he can happen for their zone is if the offense hits like 3 threes in the first half of the first quarter, because then they're going to start to settle for threes throughout the course of the game. Now, I don't think we really did that the previous 3 halves. I just think we decided to settle for whatever reason in that fourth quarter for the first available shot as opposed to the greatest shot. And the more we settled for those shots, probably the more Miami was encouraged to stick with it throughout that second half, and it really hurt us.
Awesome. All right, I believe that's it from questions. Actually, one more popped out. If you did decide to crash the wings on the offensive boards in the Miami series, how drastically do you think that would have changed the way you get back in defensive transition?
Well, we had guys crashing for sure. Without giving away our rules for transition defense, it definitely includes a corner crash, especially on the weak side. That doesn't mean the guys are going to do it every time. I think we could have I think the players themselves probably could have looked for more opportunities to crash. It wasn't so much anybody on the bench saying don't do or don't, but I think that's just something that you got to coach with your team. You don't want to be too worried about the zone, but when you see zone, okay, here are some principles that we're going to use against the zone. The attack stuff that I talked about, and then always finish it with a couple of guys crashing, because it's really an opportunity for you to get an easy one when a team's playing zone defensively. So it's more so, I guess I didn't mean to say that we didn't do it or we did do it. It's more so something that I just think you should really impress on your teams to pick up on that when they see someone playing zone. Worry less about what they're going to run and worry more about the principles that attack it, and that's just one of them.
Awesome. Perfect. Coach, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you coming on and talking to us.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. Appreciate everyone coming on as well. Have a great night.
You guys have a great night, and we're getting ready for our next session in about 21 minutes. All right. See you then.